Hello everyone, my name is Blade Brisky, and for my research paper number 2, I did mine on the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill. So first off, we're going to just start talking about the oil rig itself. So this oil rig was built by Hyundai Heavy Industries in South Korea in 2001. So it's been around for some time and have been used on multiple different drilling operations. This drilling operation was occurring 41 miles off the Louisiana coast in the Gulf of Mexico. It was drilling in the Macondo Project oil fields. This drilling rig had a drilling capacity of around 30,000 feet, but it was only being used around 18,360 feet below sea level for this drilling operation for the Deepwater Horizon project. The oil rig itself was around $560 million, and it was constructed on a floating semi-submersible drilling unit, so it was actually floating onto somewhat of Connex's shapes. The two organizations that were related to the Deepwater Horizon were the Transocean Organization and the British Petroleum, or BP. Both these companies had strong safety records with no major incidences the last 7 years. So next we're gonna go on to some pre-explosion problems and warnings that were occurred before the actual event happened. So certain things, the BP engineers definitely raised concern about the metal casing that was actually around the well that went all the way down to the oil well itself. uh, they thought it may collapse under pressure, and so they wanted to do a different approach, but BP officials suggested otherwise, and they did not go that route. Certain problems that I found: workers stated that they could get fired for raising certain safety concerns, and they might that may delay drilling because the actual Deepwater Horizon project was 5 weeks behind. So BP officials wanted to get things going, and because they were losing money at the time. There was also another confidential survey done by Transocean weeks before the explosion, stating workers were concerned about the safety practices, but feared like getting reprimanded or possibly removed from the operation, losing their job. So that was just something that to keep note of, and just like for future instances, companies should definitely encourage employees to seek out any possible issues that may cause problems in the future, because it's better to address them now than deal with the certain problems that obviously occurred after this. Also, fake data was entered by the workers, which ended up distorting the company's perception of safety. A BP memo warned that the cementing of the casing was unlikely to be successful. This was because Halliburton used a special nitrogen foaming cement, which is harder to handle, so they weren't completely done with the job at the time. And while this was happening, a BP official directed the Deepwater Horizon crews to use drilling mud instead of replace the drilling mud with light seawater. Although the chief driller of the rig protested this very heavily, but was over. Uh, they didn't go that route because the BP official wanted to go in that route, but the driller protested, and for that reason, that was another reason why this caused certain issues. So on April 20th, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon exploded. An initial 11 people died, 15 injured of the 126 aboard. Once the fire did occur, they had to evacuate pretty quickly, evacuating with boats, getting off there. People were transported from Coast Guard, about 15 total from traumatic injuries by Coast Guard to local hospitals around Alabama, Louisiana. When the explosion did happen, there are certain automatic things that start to happen with the oil rig itself. A blowout and blind shear ram failed. These systems both failed that should have prevented the explosion from happening. We'll go in more depth about how these things failed. And when the initial oil leak was happening, they estimated around 1,000 barrels a day were occurring. Now this is a picture of the blind shear ram and how this failed. So this shows that the well is still open. Those two shears should have closed all the way and bending the well itself and not allowing any oil to escape. Because of the explosion, the casing was rattled and distorted, as well as the hydraulic fluid and everything, and so it didn't completely make a complete seal and didn't bend and shear that oil well off completely, so it still ended up leaking water or oil throughout the whole time. So on April 22nd, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon ended up sinking. The United States National Contingency Plan was implemented. This was the reason BP did have a contingency plan for an oil spill, which was actually done and accepted a year before, but that plan was not in any way prepared for an oil spill at this magnitude. It was only really prepared for a 10-mile diameter oil spill, which this one just did not suffice. This time, they eventually estimated that the oil leak was actually estimated around 60,000 barrels a day. So the response, there was multiple organizations that responded to this event, from the Coast Guard, DHS, EPA, and NOAA. They were all trying to, from response to the rig and trying to mitigate certain effects from the oil itself, EPA, just different effects to wildlife, and just trying to approach that situation. The BP CEO, Tony Hayward, addressed the situation to the media pretty well. He stated to the media that BPA would take full responsibility for the spill and would pay for all legitimate claims and the cost of cleanup. So him like taking that head on and addressing the media before they start making stories is a good way to approach that. And certain solutions were made. So subject matter experts were called in from outside organizations to try to deal with the oil leak itself. They eventually did come up with a solution. Other ones they were trying to do was burning the oil slick itself, pumping shredded tires or golf balls into the well, but those just didn't end up going through. They went the route of pumping 23 barrels of mud down the well, which pushed the crude oil back to its source, which was done on August 4th, 2010. Now, could this be prevented? Yeah, I actually do believe it could have been prevented. There were a lot of reports saying the BP and Transocean employees did not correctly interpret pressure tests. They delayed telling when crucial things were happening, when there was malfunctions because of that. Like I mentioned earlier, they were scared of losing the job or being reprimanded in some cases. BP also didn't listen to recommendations by Halliburton for certain things like centralizers. But one thing, BP didn't sacrifice safety to make money, but there were definitely some risks on the rig that they could have avoided taking and could have prevented this from happening in the end. Now, just some future considerations. They could have tested the cement earlier, and that would have cost a fraction of what they ended up losing, which was around $96 billion, and it could have cost them $128,000, and taken 8 to 12 hours instead of being totally out of commission for 4 or 5 months after that. Avoid rushing to completion. They were behind, but better safe than sorry, and in the end it just ended up biting them in the butt and ended up costing them more money than it should have. And then looking into future technology to help implement backup systems, because of that blind shear ram failing, that was the end safe. Like, that should have stopped it, but because that didn't end up working in the end, they had no further backups. So just having 2 or 3 backups can help prevent these situations from happening. Yeah, so this is the end of my presentation on talking about how a business continuity contingency plan it was implemented within the BP company, but it was not large enough to handle such a situation. So this shows that constant updating of your plan, testing it into full effect, can greatly hinder you or benefit you in the end, which it ended up hindering the BP company in the end. Thank you.